Oh, be still my paranormal beating heart. This is Johnny from the Fringe Radio Network, fringeradionetwork.com, and you are listening to Paranormal Heart with your host, Kat Ward.
Welcome to Paranormal Heart, a place where people can talk about their paranormal experiences. With your host, Kat Ward.
Happy New Year! Welcome back, folks, to Paranormal Heart Podcast. I hope you're having a wonderful and safe holiday season. I have a great episode for you tonight. I'm joined by 222 Paranormal Podcast host Joe Shortridge. Joe and his sister Jen have been interested in all things paranormal since their childhood. The brother and sister duo launched 222 Paranormal Podcast in June of 2016, where they discuss personal experiences, news from the paranormal world, and interview special guests including psychics, mediums, ghost hunters, and everyday people with true supernatural stories. Joe and I covered a lot of paranormal topics in this episode, including ghosts, cryptids, UFOs, and more. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, or have questions, comments, or just want to say hello, drop me an email at paranormalheart13@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the show. You can find me on YouTube, Podbean, fringeradionetwork.com, or any place you find fine podcasts. Well, the results are in for the contest. A huge congratulations to Gary L. from Manitoba. I hope you like your Paranormal Heart Podcast hoodie and that'll keep you nice and warm. Here's Gary's story he submitted. My name is Gary. I worked as a mental health nurse for 35 years. I worked at a large facility in southern Manitoba, Canada. In 1980, I began training as a nurse. This facility housed over 1,000 residents at the time. I started school in September 1980 and arrived in nurses' residence to meet fellow students and receive my room for the next 2 years. The building was 3 stories, had a basement, and first and second floors. It was brick and probably built in the 1950s. The building faced west, and the north and south ends turned east for 30 yards. 2 house ladies, or housekeepers, escorted me to my room. My room was on the northeast side, between the washroom and the stairway fire escape. When the housekeeper opened the door, I was hit with a blast of cold air. The housekeeper continued through the door to the window, which was 5 feet off the floor and had vertical sliders. She grabbed the strings to raise the blind and lost her grip. Those pull-down blinds made quite a noise. From September to December, I had a great time meeting new friends and doing the stuff young people do. Funny thing though, I always felt watched from a spot about 9 feet off the floor above the closet. I told several friends and asked them if they had also felt as though they were being watched. They identified the same spot. At 19 years, I didn't know anything about this sort of thing and only knew of the stories my Métis Roman Catholic family had told me. So, fast forward to December 1980. I had been studying all evening and retired about midnight. The wind was blowing and it was snowing quite hard. It was unusually cold for December, as I remember. I fell asleep very quickly, into an unnaturally deep, restful sleep. At about 1:30 in the morning, I awoke freezing under the covers of my bed that I had placed on the floor after disposing of the frame. I got up and checked to make sure the window was closed. It was closed. I went to the washroom and ran some hot water to my face so I could warm up. From the hallway, I could hear the 2 night housekeepers talking in their coffee room, about 15 yards west and around the corner from me. I went back to my room and had a quick smoke, turned off my bedside lamp, and was off to sleep. Again, I fell into another unusually deep, restful sleep. About 3:30 in the morning, I awoke again to a feeling of an intense cold. I jumped up in bed and turned on my bedside light. Looked around my room. No reason to be so cold, I thought, though it is an old building. I got up and closed the vent window above the door just in case a breeze was coming from the hallway. I again went to the washroom and ran some hot water to warm up. Back to my room and jumped into bed. Again fell into an unusually deep restful sleep. About 4:30 in the morning, I awoke again to freezing under the covers. I went to sit up in bed. Something grabbed me around my neck and stopped me from sitting up. Of course, you can imagine the panic of being choked in the dark. Of course, now in recollection, it wasn't choking me, just stopped me from sitting up. It only lasted approximately 3 seconds before it let go, and 2 seconds for me to find my bedside lamp in the dark. When I turned the light, to my surprise, there was no one there. Then, in the hallway, through the door and vent up top, I heard a girl laughing loudly. I jumped up and ran, throwing open the door. Nothing. Even the fire stairway escape door, which closed automatically, was closed. One thing that surprised me was that I wasn't as terrified as I should have been. I did move out of that room within a week, though. After doing some investigation, I found I wasn't the only person in my class who had an experience. A girl on the 3rd floor north hallway had an experience. And funny enough, my best friend Randy lasted 2 weeks in the suite, southeast of my room, right across from the fire escape door. Randy was so terrified he never told me what happened in that room. Sadly, Randall passed away in 2005. From what I was able to piece together, the lady's name was Yvonne. She had completed her 2 years of training in nursing in the early 70s. She lived in my room. Her best friend lived on the 3rd floor, and they used that northeast stairwell fire escape back and forth to visit. Yvonne suffered badly from depression and was under the care of the British psychiatrist who ran our institution for many years. In the end, Yvonne sadly ended her life in another small rural community. Fast forward to the year 2000. At this time, ghost TV shows were all the rage. I did a Google search for Most Haunted Canada. I was a huge fan of the British Ghost Chasers. I found a website called Most Haunted Canada. I scrolled down through the provinces and found Manitoba. About 3 places down, I found 1976 Manitoba, 3rd floor, girl in William Scarlet outfit seen momentarily. Then, almost exactly 40 years later, I am now retired. I belong to a community Facebook page that posts pictures and discusses past events that occurred in our small city. A member requested ghost stories from our community. Many people contributed, including myself. About 3 days after posting my story, a young lady who said Yvonne was her grandmother messaged me. We spoke over the phone eventually, and she stated that she saw her grandmother when she gave birth to her first child. I told her my story and told her that my experience did not feel malevolent and felt like a playful ghost having fun with a male student. What an amazing world we live in. I continue to experience feelings and occasionally get woken from sleep with a loud bang on the wall. Thank you so much, Gary, for submitting your story. I really appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy your Paranormal Heart Podcast hoodie. Before we get to the show, here's Paranormal Heart 101 with Jen from Unearthing Shadows Paranormal and her tips and tricks in paranormal investigating. Over to you, Jen.
Hi, this is Jennifer, and I am Senior Lead Investigator of Unearthing Shadows Paranormal, and you're listening to Paranormal Heart Podcast with Kat Ward. Welcome to this segment of Paranormal Heart 101. It's really hard for me to pick my favorite piece of paranormal investigative equipment. It's a toss-up. It's a close call. I really like the spirit box or the ghost box. The reason being, well, first of all, how it works is it sweeps radio frequencies at different speeds. You can go from somewhat slower of a speed to a faster speed, and it just flips through different radio stations at this frequency. You can go in a forward direction, so it goes from point 1 to point 2 to point 3 of a radio station, or you can go backwards. So, and you can choose AM or you can choose FM frequencies. It's pretty cool. And so the idea behind it is it's sweeping these radio stations so quickly that maybe you get little glips and blips of words or sounds from the radio stations. However, you won't be able to hear a solid word from the radio stations themselves because it just sweeps way too quickly for you to get any sort of legible sentence out. So the cool thing, what it does is Spirit can take their energy or the energy from these devices. They can use this energy and they can, in their own words, in real time, communicate back to us and respond to questions or let us know their message. So, and again, we can validate that these messages are not coming from radio stations specifically because you can see multiple stations pass by in the period of time that these messages are coming out. So one example, I was on an investigation at an old courthouse, and we had the spirit box going, and we could see that it was sweeping through these radio stations very quickly. And one of the girls on the investigation and her best friend screamed out loud, jumped in the air, and what they both had heard simultaneously was this girl's first, middle, and last name being said through the spirit box. Now, this is absolutely impossible that it could happen over a radio station in that period that it had said her first, middle, and last name. It had probably swept through, 13, 15, 20 radio stations. So, you hear this smooth, legible, clear word or words. And then we had asked Spirit to repeat their message. And a few moments later, again, they jumped up and they heard first, middle, and last name being spoken through the spirit box in Spirit's voice. So I have to say that is a pretty amazing, incredible, and validating piece of investigative equipment. And then paired with that, some people aren't quite a fan of this, but I really am a fan of the Ovilus. So what the Ovilus is it's a device that basically can sort of read the energy or the frequencies in the atmosphere, and what it does is it basically formulates letters, and then when it has a number of letters that are formulated, it kind of strings it together into a word. So the Ovilus, you may see these devices, but an Ovilus periodically will just say a word in sort of a robotic voice. It'll say ocean or ship or drowning. And these are some samples of words that we've heard when we were at an investigation at an old maritime museum, and we were asking Spirit, what had happened to him and where had he been and things like that. And we were getting incredibly validating words that were spoken to us. Now, this isn't in the Spirit's voice, like the Spirit box. This is just generated, it pulls words from a dictionary of words that are sort of stored within the device. So you're not hearing Spirit's voice per se, but you do get clear responses because it's coming from a database. Whereas the Spirit box, sometimes you have to ask it to repeat itself. It's really clear, the Ovilus. So those two together are pretty spectacular for me. Downside of Spirit box is sometimes you just get a lot of white noise and static, which is to be expected when you're sweeping through many frequencies. But and with the Ovilus, you don't have that. But again, hearing Spirit's actual voice come through is pretty spectacular. So really, it's a toss-up. I'm not 100% sure which one's my absolute favorite. I do like to have both on an investigation, and if both devices can sort of validate what's coming from the other device, even better. I mean, really, truly, it's great when you have two independent devices saying similar things. So I'll take them both. Well, thank you very much for listening to another episode of Paranormal Heart 101, and I hope you have a lovely day. Take care and stay safe.
Thanks so much, Jen. Now on to the show with my special guest, Joe Shortridge. Hi, Joe. Welcome to Paranormal Heart.
Well, hello there. So glad to be on here finally.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you on. Thank you for accepting. Yeah. We were just discussing how, and it seems to always happen with me too. There's always seems to be some technical issues. The last couple of times, my internet was intermittent because of storms, and then we did lose power because of the storm. Well, it was the tornadoes that you had in the States, but we were lucky that we didn't have tornadoes, but we had quite strong winds and freezing rain and snow. It was horrible. I'll take that over twisters anytime.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So would you like to start off by telling us a little about yourself?
No.
No? Okay.
No. So if your listeners don't know, I'm on a podcast with my sister. We do the 222 Paranormal Podcast. We're in our 6th season. We've got like 280 some shows out, I believe.
Nice.
And haven't repeated an episode yet. Haven't repeated a topic yet. I think we're going to have to, because we really do need to go back and look at some of the earlier shows because they're so good. And now that we know a little more than what we did then, I think we should revisit them and make new shows out of them, because obviously they'd be a lot better now. And plus our voices are a lot better. Some of the first shows, they're like, hi, you know.
It's funny how we seem to get more confidence as we go along.
Oh yeah. The how we got started in the show is I was always into UFOs and space, which I still am. And my sister was into the ghost hunting stuff. And I didn't really put into the ghost hunting or that aspect of it until I had an after-death episode with my best friend Jackie. I got a call one night, found out she was on life support, and drove out to the hospital. I was a wreck. Drove out there, saw her. Then the next day I had to work. So, you know me, I'm like, oh, I gotta go home so I go to work. So I drove the 2 hours back. And while I'm at work, I'm like, total wreck. Because, you know, my best friend, we were pretty much psychic friends. I mean, it was to the point where we would call each other on the phone, and her phone would be busy because she's calling me, that type of thing.
That's awesome.
And one of the funny things is I was at my house, and Jackie was in Florida with their parents, and all of a sudden I noticed MTV's on the air. I'm like, MTV, you know. And if some of your listeners may not know, MTV actually used to play music.
Yeah.
But I kept calling her, and her phone was always busy. And finally I gave up, and my phone rang, and it was her going, MTV, you know?
No.
So we were like that. We were psychic friends. And the next day when I was at work, I got a phone call, and then her sister said that they were going to take her off life support, and she wouldn't make it, so we were taking off life support. And that was, I think she said that they were going to do it within a half hour. It's a 2-hour drive to Cleveland from my house, so I knew I wasn't going to make it. So I left work. I went home, took a shower, you know, because I knew I was going to make it. And I was driving to Cleveland, which is a 2-hour drive, and I was a total wreck. I mean, I don't cry, but I was pretty close to it. And about halfway there, imagine your electric stove, the element in your stove. Imagine if someone took that over your head while I was on and just waved it over your body. A line of heat going through your body and then out your fingertips and out your toes. And that instant, instead of me being a total wreck, should have been driving, I was just the way I am now. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. So I get to the hospital. And I go up and see her husband, and I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, well, she hasn't passed yet, and the doctor doesn't know how. He says they took off, or, you know, they don't actually pull the plug, they stop the medication.
Mm-hmm.
They actually stopped the medication about an hour ago. And that was the exact same time I felt that sensation.
Wow.
Okay. So I just take it as that is when they stopped medication, and she was communicating to me that it's okay. Mm-hmm. Well, he's like, your husband's like, do you want to go see her? I'm like, yeah. So I walk in the room, and she's still alive, I reach down, I touch her hand, and one of the machines starts beeping. And I'm like, oh crap, I stepped on a hose. And the nurse came in and said, no, she just passed. So
Wow.
she actually passed away the second I touched her hand. Okay. And everybody says she waited for me because they have no clue how she was still actually alive and a heartbeat going with no medication and no, I mean, she was totally on a ventilator, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I sit there with her, and being the person I am, I'm grabbing her hand, turning her hand to see what it would do. And I'm thinking she'd do the same thing to me, But anyhow, after she passed, we all just sat around for a little bit, and I finally did go home. And it was probably 4 a.m. when I left. The next morning, I get up, and I go to her mom's house to pick up some stuff for her mom. And I turn on my car, and the radio's on a station that I don't even listen to out of Detroit. Okay. And all of a sudden, I hear the REO Speedwagon song come on that she played over and over and over. And I mean, she wore out the CD, she wore out the tape with that song that drove me nuts because that's all she ever played. So I was like, kind of freaked out, how does the radio automatically go to a station that I don't listen to, and then the song comes on? Well, since then, I've had so many communications with her through dreams, through going into stores, and that song comes on the radio or on their PA system. I turn on my, and it's not like I'm looking for it. All of a sudden, it just happens. Mm-hmm. So I took that as communication from her. And then a few days later, after that, I had a dream about her for the first time. And when I first had the dream about her, the first thing I said to her, and being a good friend that I am, I looked at her and said, last time I saw you, you were dead. And we, since then, have had hundreds of dreams where she's communicating with me. I've had dreams of her with her family that have passed. And it's never dreams like, Joe, look under the couch for the lotto ticket or anything like that. Mm-hmm. It's just comforting dreams, knowing that we communicate, but yet we don't talk. Mm-hmm. Like, one of the big things was she was deaf. So she had cochlear implants, which is a computer that goes in your brain so that a person that's deaf can hear.
Wow.
And after she passed, one big thing I remember in the dreams is she never moves her lips. She doesn't talk that way. We talk through, nonverbal communication, I guess, or I forget what you call it. I forget the term.
Telepathy?
But anyhow, telepathy, yes. So we talked through that. And it's just that pushed me into learning more about the ghosty side of it. And then Jen came in one day and said, hey, let's start a podcast. And I'm like, okay. So the next day I got some equipment and the rest is history.
Oh, wow. Just like that.
So
let's start a podcast.
A long answer to your question, but yeah. So since then, I've done a lot of research in after-death communication. I'm working on a book. It's coming along. I'm kind of slow about writing, but I'm working on a book about Jackie and about our situation, and all the things that happened since then. And I've been contacted by people that have the same situations, because once you mention it to people, they were like, well, I had the same thing happen. I heard stories from them. I've even heard a story of a woman's daughter passed away, and she was always big on talking on the phone. So she was actually buried with her phone in the casket. And the mother, to this day, says she still gets phone calls from that phone. Sometimes she picks it up, sometimes she doesn't. But when she does pick it up, she just says that it sounds like a very far away sound. She never actually talks to the daughter, but the phone is calling her all the time. And I'm still working on permission. Nope, I lost you there. I didn't hear what you said. But I'm still working on permission from that woman to put it in a book. So that may end up being in the book.
Sorry, I was muted on my end.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I have no idea how.
It's the spirits.
The recording, anyways, it's fixed now. Yeah. No, I was saying when my mom passed, I wish I would have thought of that, burying a phone with her. So maybe she'd call me.
It happens a lot more than you think. I was surprised when people are starting to contact me about it and the different situations. A lot of it is dreams.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have after death dreams of their loved ones, and it's a very common thing.
I have a lot of dreams of my mother and one of my uncles who passed many years ago. He was one of my favorite uncles. We used to do a lot of things together, and so I dream a lot about my mother and my uncle. So, but what you had mentioned earlier about communicating without the lips moving, when I dream about them, now that you mention that, when we're speaking in the dreams, lips are not moving.
No.
And I just realized that, so that's interesting.
Yeah, it's just something that I just picked it up, and I try to remember them. I never write them down. I should. I'm sure there's a lot of dreams that I can't remember because I didn't write it down,
Yeah.
But, yeah, so hopefully my story will get out and help a lot of people, help with their grieving or whatever with their loved ones, because they can communicate with us. I mean, we know, working in the paranormal field, me and you both know that spirits can communicate in several different ways.
Yeah, and a lot of times we don't realize that that's what they're trying to do. Like I've said countless times that when people say that cupboard doors are being opened in their kitchen or whatever, or something went flying across the room, a lot of times, and at least in my experience, it's not something that's demonic or anything. It's just the entity that's trying to communicate with you is getting frustrated that you're not picking up on them trying to say, hello, I'm here, and they get really frustrated. I've encountered that so many times, and once people realize, oh, okay, like, no, you don't need to be afraid, it's grandma or whoever. Once they realize that, and then they kind of open themselves up, then they're a little bit more in tune to kind of pick up on what the individual's trying to communicate. So
yeah, and sometimes they communicate with us through others so that we don't get freaked out.
Yeah,
I had a situation with my other best friend. I'm saying best friends, but I got a lot of friends. But my friend Dana, her mom's boyfriend passed away in a plane crash, and he started appearing to all their friends and not to her. And she was getting kind of upset about that, and I explained it to my friend Dana that if he was to appear to her, she'd probably be in a psych ward right now because she would freak out so much. He showed himself to others, and they communicate to her and got her almost ready for the time that he comes to her.
Oh, nice.
Another good example is my dad passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And my mom saw, in her house, in between the kitchen and the dining, or the kitchen and the living room, is just a wall, like a divider wall. And she had a little wooden pumpkin on there. And she said that it started bouncing. And she said she stood there for a good 10 minutes and watched this thing bounce. And there's no fans on, all that, no fans, no heater vents, nothing, no reason for this thing to move. And she's like, I knew it was a sign from him. And I'm like, yeah, because if he would have just pop up and appear in front of you, that would freak you out.
Probably have a coronary right there.
Yeah. The spirits just do things that way so that they're not freaking us out. They're not scaring us, because they don't want to scare us. They want to let us know that they're there, but in the way that we can handle it.
Some want to scare us.
Yeah.
I love it when we're investigating, and I'm sure you've come across this. You ask for a sign, and it happens, and everybody jumps, or screams, and then one of us will have to say, "We're sorry. Yes, we did ask for a sign, but we didn't expect it to happen so quickly, or whatever." Yeah. But it's so funny. You scream, and then you kind of giggle.
And there's always that one person that runs out of the room. It's like, wait a minute, you're here to talk to the ghost, and when they answer you, you run out of the room.
Yeah. Fight or flight.
Yeah.
Even for investigators.
That's true. Yeah, because people see the TV shows and they think that that's how it happens. Everything happens in like 30 minutes. It's awesome.
I know.
No.
If only.
Sit there all night long to listen for one knock.
Yeah, right. And I have to remind people too that for those TV shows, they could be in that same location for 2 or 3 days, and then they just edit what didn't happen and just put the things that are interesting to show. So yeah, it's.
Yeah, I know some of the writers from some of the shows. I mean, I know a lot of the people that are actually in the shows are really great people. Mm-hmm. And if anybody goes up, have you been to Michigan Paracon yet?
No, I haven't.
Get up there. If you want to meet everybody in the shows, go to Michigan Paracon. But no, I know a lot of them from different conventions and that, and they're really good people. And I was talking to some of the writers for one of the most popular shows. I can't mention which show it is, but the guy has spiky hair and it's haunted. But sometimes they'll be on set for months, or they'll record and then they'll leave for 2 or 3 months and they'll come back and record some more.
Ah.
And they just, they have people that take pictures of them so that they know exactly what shirts they are wearing, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, the TV shows are definitely edited down to get all the good stuff. And it's entertainment. It has to be entertainment.
Exactly. Yeah. They have a business,
Yeah.
That's funny. No, I didn't know that they did that for, they would return a few months later. I didn't know that. Huh.
Yeah, one little insider, if you're watching the shows, look at the windows. Mm-hmm. And the windows will be like black or have a purple tint to them. Mm-hmm. Because what they do is they put the sheets, the sheen or whatever, over the windows to make it look like it's either nighttime or make it so that you can't tell if the season has changed.
Oh, tricky.
Yeah, just one of these, because a lot of the shows are recorded at nighttime, but lots of times it's not nighttime, it's just blacked out. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter whether it's dark out or light out. Nope. You're still going to get responses from the spirits. Mm-hmm. We investigate in the dark because it's cool.
Yeah, right.
Plus obviously it's less contamination because it's quieter at night and stuff.
Exactly.
And all that, but,
less light contamination and sound, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like a lot of the places I've investigated during the day, there's people in there. Restaurants, bars, hotels, all that kind of stuff. There's people that are in there mingling around, and it gives us a chance to be in there by ourselves, which is another reason we get into this field, is we get to go to places that nobody else can.
Right. I'm still trying to get us into some locations here. It's like I keep sending people emails and no one's replying. It's like, really? Oh. It's frustrating, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Just go ahead as the history aspect of it too. That helps.
Oh yes, I love when I first started investigating, I wanted to find out a little bit more on, get some answers on why are we getting hauntings and things like that. And now it's more, I like to find out about the historical aspects. I still like doing private residences because we want to try and help people, especially if they have kids. But I'm really into the, old museums, old jails, and I just love the old buildings and find out the history. Absolutely love that.
Yeah, yeah.
The architecture. Oh man.
Oh, I know. And you get to go in and see it up close and without anybody there, and you can spend the time to actually look at it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
There's a theater here in Toledo that I go to a lot. I've had a lot of things happen in this theater. It's called the Collingwood Art Theater. Mm-hmm. And it's an old convent. It was originally a mansion, and the guy that owned it tore down the back of the mansion and built this huge convent on the back of it. So this place is massive. The one night I was just probably 3 a.m. I was sitting in the main auditorium all by myself, no lights on, just watching green and red lights just float across the stage.
Wow.
So visible orbs.
Yeah.
Not the other kind, I do have my orb here. So.
Love it.
But no, I was sitting there, and that's some of the things that we get to do as paranormal investigators is going to these places. I was just sitting there, no cameras on, nothing, no recorders, just enjoying the moment, watching lights going across the stage. Another location that I investigated with Haunted Toledo is a church here in town called the historic Old St. Pat's Church, and it's like a cathedral. And that was awesome because the priest that was running it tells us, okay, I'll be in the building next door. When you guys are done, just shut this door right here and it'll lock itself, and I'll come in and turn down the lights in the morning. Like, okay, and
Didn't want to stay for the investigation?
no, and but we got to investigate in basically a cathedral.
Nice.
With complete, it's all the relics in there. He trusts us enough that all the gold chalices, all that's still there. It's a working church, and it's very historic. Neat thing about that place is the police and fire department always have their services at that church. Like once a year, there's a police and fire mass, and they, every time a firefighter or police officer passes away, whether on duty or off duty, they have the services there. So they have, on one side of the church, they have the memorial for the police, and on the other side of the church is the memorial for the fire department. And then in the church also are pictures of the original people that helped open the church, and my great-great-grandparents are one of the people. So during the investigation, all night long, we kept hearing the fire bell ring, the little, the last call bell. That was ringing. We got EVPs saying the name Best, which is my mom's maiden name, and just stuff like that. It was very interesting. And
that's amazing.
Just like I said, it's just another place that we get to go into and see these places by ourselves without anybody else there, and just spend the time and enjoy them.
Yeah. Now, do you get people to sign things before you do the investigation to say that if anything's broken, no one's liable, or if anybody gets hurt or anything like that? Because I know some teams do that.
Yeah. A lot of the places that we go to now, I consider myself more of a ghost hunter than a paranormal investigator, because I don't take the time to investigate, and like a true paranormal investigation takes months to not years. So, but I'm the type, I go into these places and I'll pay to ghost hunt, or I'll go in with other teams and ghost hunt. So a lot of those places always have us sign waivers and that. Sometimes if we know the people good enough, they just go, But they have to cover themselves in case something does happen.
Yeah.
But like the church and the Collingwood Arts Center and places like that, we didn't sign anything because we go, one thing, the Collingwood Arts Center, we go there all the time, so they know us. And two, the church, that was Toledo, or Haunted Toledo was doing a documentary about the church. So it was like a filming type investigation. So we didn't have to sign anything then, but we did sign a form that says that we cannot talk about what we saw or did until their documentary comes out. Even though it hasn't come out yet. It's been 2 years. Get on it, But they're a little slow, but they do good work.
It's frustrating though, because you want it to be done.
Yeah, I want to see it. I want to see because I know what the footage looked like from my point of view, but I want to see what it looked like from the camera's point of view.
Yeah. Any idea when it'll be out?
No, I don't. No.
Too bad.
I don't. And I think it might even be like a collaboration thing where instead of just doing about the church, they're doing about a lot of locations in Toledo. So maybe that's why it's taking so long. I don't know.
Maybe. And maybe COVID put a kibosh on things?
It could have, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because none of us could get into places.
Yeah. It seems to be the same story I hear from a lot of people in this field. It's we're not investigating nearly as much as we used to, and which is, you start seeing people posting on social media. And it's like, I wish COVID would end because I really need to go ghost hunting.
Yeah.
Getting a little
and not
twitchy.
at their own house.
Yeah. I won't investigate my own house. I've had lived in a house out in Alberta where the gentleman that lived, we bought the house from the widow, and her husband was still in the house, and I had some friends say, "Oh, just put a voice recorder, see if you pick anything up." I'm like, nope. I know he's there. I talk to him sometimes. He messes with the thermostat, and I told him not to. I'm going to get rid of him because he doesn't pay the hydro.
That's right.
And he's heating us out. But yeah, it's just excuse me. Lost my breath there for some reason. But yeah, I won't investigate my own house. I'm okay with going other locations. I just feel, I don't know if you feel the same way. It's I feel if I investigate my own, it's only going to increase activity in the house, and the rest of my family might not be as comfortable with things like that than I am. So I just kind of leave everything alone.
Yeah, I have not really investigated the house. We've had a lot of things happen here at my house. This is where our studio is. I actually had a photography studio that I turned into the audio studio.
Nice.
But we did have, like, going back to talking about Jackie, my best friend that passed away.
Yep.
We were sitting here recording one night, and while we record, there's been so many things that happen. So many, we get so many listeners that contact us and say, "I heard an EVP." At this time.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had things happen like, but anyways, first off, we were sitting here recording, and I'm on this side of the table, like, as you can see me in the camera, and Jen was at the other side of the table, and we're doing our show, and we were wrapping up the show, and I looked up, and in between my living room and my bedroom, and then the hallway leading into this room, where the studio is, it's the living room, my bedroom, my art gallery, and then this room. I see this blue light go across the hallway. I'm like, I just saw a blue light go across the hallway. And Jen jumps up, grabs her phone, grabs the spirit box, and walks over and says, "We want to know if anybody's here. Do you know who lives here?" And clear as day, the spirit box blurts out, "Hi, Joe," in Jackie's voice.
Oh, wow.
And I should have planned out better. I could have played it for you. I have it on here. But it is you've heard of Class A EVPs. This is Class A plus EVP.
Wow.
It is her voice, clear as day, saying, "Hey, Joe." And I played it for Jackie's mom. I'm like, "I want you to listen to something." And she has no clue about what we do. She knows what we do with our podcast and our ghost hunting, but as far as the gear goes, she doesn't know anything. So all she hears is the spirit box going,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden you hear this, "Hey, Joe." And she turned white. I mean, she's like, "That was Jack?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Aww.
Yep. And stuff happens to us all the time when we're recording. We were here one night.
Now, were you recording live that night? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Were you and so the listeners were able to hear it too?
No, not that one.
Okay.
We were just wrapping up the show, and when we record, we don't do video. For our normal podcast, we don't do video. We just do the audio through. I have a recorder on the desk here, and then it goes into our mics, and each mic has a different channel. But we're done basically, and she jumped up and we captured that. But she does have it on recording. I'll send it to you after this.
Yeah, please. I might be able to slip it into when I do the editing.
Okay. And another time we were recording, I didn't have my hand on the computer or nothing. I'm just laying back, talking, and Ave Maria started playing right in the middle of our show. And I'm like, okay.
Wow.
So I did go back into my computer, go to our sound bites, because we have our sound bites that we start the show with, different music. I had to go in there, find Ave Maria, stop it from playing. And then another one, and I'll send this one to you after also. We did the story about the Greenbrier ghost. And what the Greenbrier ghost is, it's the only time in history that we know of where a ghost actually solved her own murder in a court of law. Okay.
Yes.
Her mother was getting visitation dreams like I did with Jackie. And in her dreams, she was getting all the details of this girl's murder, and she brought it up in trial, and they actually convicted the guy on testimony from her mother, saying that it's testimony from the ghost. So we did that show, and we were finishing up, and we were doing our goodbyes, and I was telling the audience, to go to Jen's Poshmark page, which is her online boutique, and basically buy some clothes so we can get money for gas. But just as I'm saying that, all of a sudden an EVP came up of a woman screaming, and I was like, "What was that?" And when you listen to it, I kind of dorkishly say, "Yeah."
The link's in the description below, and what was that?
That was weird. I hope you guys all heard that.
Yeah.
With us. I'm so glad we didn't call it groused.
It was a woman screaming, and it only came through on my track, but we both heard it, and the listeners heard it also, because all tracks are recorded together.
Mhm.
But when I play it back, I isolated just my track, and it was only in my track. It wasn't in Jen's track. So it wasn't any kind of electronic noise or anything like that. I mean, I've gone through so much trying to figure it out. Basically, I put it off as Class A EVP of a woman screaming because we were talking about a woman that was murdered.
Wow.
And
That's amazing.
I'll send it to you. Yeah.
Please, yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah. So
I don't think
stuff
I've
happens
had.
all the time.
Yeah, I haven't had anyone message me to say that they heard any EVPs during my show, but I have had a guest. Which one was it? She messaged me and said I didn't pay attention to what time frame it was at, but I thought I heard a little girl's voice. And I've listened to that episode over and over again, and I can't find it. So I'm still listening because I'm really curious. And I even asked her, do you remember what we were talking about? Because that might narrow down where I can actually put my concentration to. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. I kind of hope it happens someday that a listener say, hey.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Yeah, so if anybody ever hears any EVPs, or you think you have, please let me know.
Yes, definitely.
They
will.
So interesting. Yeah.
Now that you mentioned it, they're going to be like listening really close, turning up full blast. Okay,
Yeah.
Usually EVPs that happen during our investigations is just my stomach growling anyway. So,
Have you ever seen that not Supernatural, Saturday Night Live skit where they're doing the most haunted, just a spoof on that, and so they have it's supposed to be David Okora, and he passed wind, and then the two people behind him are like, "Did you hear that?" And he says, "No, nothing." And then the other two people are like, "It sounded like Roger." So let's play it again, so they rewind the tape and play it again, and it's really him, right? Yeah. It's kind of funny. Because it's funny because I try, whenever I show images or audio to people, I don't tell them what I think I see or hear. I just say, hey, take a look at this, and what do you think it is? Because I find if you tell people, it's like, yeah, I think I heard the word Roger, then they're like, yeah, totally. But
yes, exactly.
Yeah. Kind of
so that's the
ruins
same thing I do. If I try to make a video to put up on YouTube or that, which I don't do many of, but I caught myself doing that where I'm playing it, and as I'm playing it, I'm putting the words out. I'm like, wait a minute, no, I want them to tell me what they hear, so that they can validate what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
The spirit box is a good tool, but it's something you really have to learn to use.
Definitely.
Because you have to learn to pick up the sounds that are either spirit talk or radios, radio stations, and it's something you just got to practice with, just like anything else.
Yep. I know some investigators who make a little Faraday cage, which is really just a bag, and then they put the spirit box in that, and I've never tried it. It would be interesting to see if, because it would eliminate the radio stations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the techniques that I love doing is the Estes method. And if your listeners don't know what that is, you basically put sound deadening headphones on. What I do is I plug in my earbuds into the spirit box, put my earbuds in first, then I put the noise canceling headphones over that, and then I put a blindfold on. And it's a sensory deprivation. And you can't hear what's going on in the room But the people that are with you can talk normal, and you just still talk quiet, talk normal, and ask questions. And the person that has the headphones on just says what they hear. And I love doing that. There's been times where we were at a restaurant here in Toledo, and I'm sitting there, and it was probably about an hour and a half I was sitting under the Estes method, and I'm just blurting out words, and I've heard the person's voice or the person's name that I was with a couple of times. I heard the one time I just blurted out, "He's coming." Don't know what that was until after we played it back. At that exact time, the guy that was with me, Harold, heard footsteps coming up the stairs. And I blurted out, "He's coming."
Yeah.
You know? But when you are under the Estes method, what I love about it is it's not only are you hearing the radio frequencies, but if you listen close in the background, I actually hear full-on conversations going on in the white noise.
Really?
And that is what you really want to listen for when you're doing the Estes method. Is don't so much listen to the blips that you hear, but you will actually start hearing full sentences if you pay attention and just absorb what you're hearing and kind of teach yourself what to listen for. Yeah, and we've recorded full sentences from the Spirit Box too, which is basically impossible because it's sweeping the radio stations.
Yeah, the chances of that actually being various radio stations actually putting together words, to make something intelligent, like a sentence, is very slim.
Yeah, and it's sort of like at the house here with the Hi Joe one.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the chances of a radio station scanning the exact time right after Jen asked the question for the response to be "Hey Joe"? Mm-hmm. And it's not the song, what was that? I forget his name, but I think it was the Beatles. "Hey Joe," but it wasn't that. I'll play it for you. I'll send it to you so you can hear that. But it's you'll blow your mind.
Yeah, it fascinates me so much. Obviously, because I investigate, but it when you ask a question and then you get something, like you get a reply at the moment that you ask the question that actually fits the question. It's just so amazing.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is too, and one of the big conversations we've been having in our little circle is the more we learn, the less we know. Mm-hmm. And we basically, now this is going to sound weird, but we basically don't know anything about the paranormal.
Yep.
If you think about it. I mean, we have experiences like that. Like you just said, you can't do that again. You can't go in there scientifically and prove that you heard that. But yet you have, and you have it on tape.
Yeah.
So the big conversation is, we really don't know anything about what's going on. We assume, and we take a lot of evidence and try to back stuff up. Mm-hmm. But until we're on the other side, we really don't know how the spirits communicate, how they listen to us, how they see us. My friend Miranda does a great thing when she does her investigations. She takes a whiteboard and she'll actually write on the whiteboard a question, and she's gotten responses back by that. So that tells me that they can see us.
Yeah, so she doesn't actually read it out loud as she's writing. She just quietly writes. That's fascinating.
Mm-hmm. So, one more experiment that we can try to see how they listen to us. Because, you think about when we hear them, unless we hear a full sentence, we hear just bits and pieces of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, well, is that how they hear us? But we don't know. Mm-hmm. And with that, when she told me about it, she's like, because I was watching one of her episodes, I said, "You used a whiteboard?" And she's like, "Yeah." And she says, "I got a response from that whiteboard," as if she read it out loud and heard it back on the EVP, but she didn't. She just wrote it on the board and held up the board.
I have to try that.
So, yeah.
Have you ever tried dowsing rods or Morse keys or compasses?
All the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I use dowsing rods almost every investigation. I use them also. I clean off grave sites as a hobby, and I use the dowsing rods to find a lot of the grave sites that I'm looking for also, because they're completely under the grass, and I've had huge success with that.
Yeah,
And
I've
dowsing
never.
rods are awesome because they've been around for 8,000 years. The spirits know what they are.
Mhm.
They can manipulate them easily, and the batteries don't wear out.
Exactly. Yeah. Spending hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars on batteries, you just opened up a fresh pack and the battery's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're telling the spirits, use the energy, and you're like, not these.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess with dowsing rods, you don't have to explain, because I don't know if you do this, but we do. We'll explain what our equipment is, because they might not know what a flashlight is or a K2 meter or whatever. So we'll just say this box with the pretty lights, can you bring it to the green color or whatever. But you don't have to do much explaining with the dowsing rods, like you said.
No. Mm-hmm. And that's, with the equipment, I always say, it's not magic. It's just something we made to communicate with you. It will not hurt you, because you have to remember too that depending on the age of the spirits, they might only know light as in fire. Mm-hmm. So if you say touch the light, they're not going to touch it because they think it's going to burn them.
Yeah.
And so I always say, it's not magic. This is something we made. It's just a tool that we use to communicate with you, and this is how we communicate with you. Mm-hmm. And my style of investigation is, if I'm talking to a little kid, I'll sit down on the floor and talk to them, and because you have to investigate as if they're standing in front of you, because they basically are, and you have to treat them how they would be treated if they were alive and standing in front of you.
My past guest, John Moore, used to mention that ghosts are people too,
Yeah.
So,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it all depends on what, if you're going into a prison and investigating a prison, you're not going to say, oh, please come over and talk to me. You're going to be like, hey, come here and talk to me.
Yeah.
Be
a little firmer.
Not being rude. Don't
respectful,
provoke.
but firm.
That's one thing.
Yeah.
I never provoke. I never yell. But you're not going to go into a prison and say, oh, please come over and talk to me. Sit on the floor. Come here. No, he's just going to be like, hey, we want to talk to you. We want to find out your story. Come talk to us. And vice versa. If it is kids and you know that there are kids there, then, you're like, hey, you want to play? Hey, take your trigger items or whatever and see what happens.
Do you carry crystals or anything like that for protection when you do your investigations?
I don't. My sister does, but I don't. I pretty much, I try to stay bare bones as possible. I don't carry a lot of equipment. I'll carry my K2 meter. I love the K2. It's the first line of communication. Mm-hmm. Then I'll carry a digital recorder, the dowsing rods, and sometimes the obelisk. But I found the obelisk to be, sometimes it just goes off way too much. If there's a lot of static in the air, or if you touch it too much, it'll go off way too much.
Okay.
I just had a person ask me about a plasma ball. They're like, hey, have you ever used a plasma ball to investigate? And I've tried it, but the problem with those is they put out EMF. And the one that I have is probably about the same size as my orb.
Yep.
Just a little 4-inch one. And I was thinking it'd be great because if the spirits touch it, you can see the line where they touch. Mm-hmm. But they put out so much that little one that I had put out a 5-foot radius of EMF. Any equipment that got close to it spiked. Yep. So I don't use it. Yeah.
It's too bad.
It would be good to use if you could put it in a room and put a camera on it and just leave it alone.
Yeah.
To see if anything happens, and which is nice too, because then you can, as you're watching your playback, you can just kind of watch at a different speeds until you see something change. Mm-hmm. But,
I'm excited about that plasma ball now. I wonder if there's something. Well, yeah, but I just wonder if there's something that could be invented if there isn't already anything that's similar to that, but doesn't interfere with equipment as much.
Yeah, I don't know.
Any scientists out there or people who are really good at building things, please contact us.
Yeah. We want more equipment. No.
Yeah.
It's got to be flashy. It's got to have lights on it. And it's got to buzz.
I've always said that I wanted to have someone create a pair of glasses that will enable me to see what the same way that cats see, because I have cats and dogs, but I find cats seem to be a little bit more in tune with seeing things or sensing things. And I would love to be able to see what they're seeing. So if somebody could actually invent a pair of glasses that enables us to see what I think that would be pretty cool. But
Yeah. I've heard that, I don't know if this is true, but I heard, we were talking to some people and he said that cats actually see by lines. In their vision, they pretty much don't see like we do. They just see the lines. I don't know what that means, but it tells me that maybe when a spirit is showing themselves, it's interfering with the lines, I guess. I don't know, but
yeah, maybe.
Cats are very in tune to spirit.
Yeah, they say some faiths say that because they're they have a paw in the in our world and a paw in the on the other side, so they can see both sides. So whether or not that's true, I don't know.
Yeah, we don't, and that goes back to what I was saying before. We don't know.
Yeah, like
Until we get on the other side.
Yeah, exactly. We assume that that ghosts are energy, and but we don't really know for sure. It's just something that we're trying to figure it out. Yeah. But I know some people get angry when you say that we don't really know a lot about the paranormal yet, and like, well, yeah, sure we do. We get all this evidence. Like, yeah, well, what does the evidence exactly mean? You know, but
I mean, we don't even know where consciousness is yet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know it's in our body somewhere, but is our brain receivers, or does the brain put out consciousness, or is it even in the brain? We don't know.
You're making me really think now. I've got a headache. Thanks a lot, Joe.
I won't send you that far down that rabbit hole.
Oh, when I talk to Kat Hobson sometimes, oh my, she's an interesting lady that sure gets you to think about things.
Mm-hmm.
If you would be able to go anywhere in the world to investigate, do you have a favorite place that's like, this is definitely on my bucket list?
I was always thought about Auschwitz.
Oh.
Even though it's evil and tragic and sad, I don't know if I could handle it. Because if I did start communicating, what would you say?
Yeah.
You know, but
just sorry for once, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that such tragedy happened there. But other than that, I think Ireland. I think the castle's in Ireland.
Nice.
I'd love to go over there. A little better places than.
Yeah. I have heard, I can't remember who it was. It was, I can't remember who it is. But anyways, this guy said that they were on vacation in Germany, and they said, okay, let's go to Auschwitz, and I want to go see this. Well, this guy, they're all in their late teens, early 20s, and he hadn't learned to develop his abilities yet, or to shield it properly. But his friends knew that, he was sensitive. So he couldn't get very far in Auschwitz. He says there's just he was overwhelmed, and they literally had to help carry him out, like help him walk out. Once they figured out what was going on, because they're like, what are you doing? Are you okay? And then he was able to say what he was feeling and everything. And then somebody kind of clued in and said, oh, okay, this is not the place for you until you can learn how to shield yourself a little better. So that's, it would be an interesting place to go, but I just can't imagine the emotions that are imprinted there. I just oh yeah,
that's what I mean. It's just it would be way overwhelming. I don't even know if I could visit it, like I said, because I'm not sensitive at all. I have no psychic abilities or that, but just knowing the history, But I think that it would be an amazing place to investigate on a paranormal level, so that maybe you can help tell some of these people's stories,
Exactly, yeah. Even if you have messages for family members or something, I think that would be very, very interesting to do, and maybe give some families some closure a little bit, perhaps. But I don't think that would be a place, like you said, it would be very interesting to go, but I don't think I'd be able to go.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
But I think I've always thought that'd be the ultimate place to check out, but I still think I'd like to go to the castles. I think that if some like you did ask, one of the places, I think that's it.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, just looking at the architecture of the castles alone it would be amazing to see, but to be able to investigate as well, that would be amazing. I'd love to be able to do that. So if anyone's listening, please send Joe and I to Ireland to investigate. That's right. We would love to do that.
Yeah.
Or Scotland or
Yeah. Other than that, some of the places here in the States, I'd love to go to some of the real popular haunted locations like St. Augustine Lighthouse, the what is it? I can't think of the name of it, but there's a fort down there also, right by the lighthouse. Places like that, Octagon Hall, maybe, Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary. I'd love to go there. I just want to travel.
Yeah, me too. I really wish I had the money to be able to just travel and investigate and bring friends. Have a paranormal travel bus and a paranormal travel jet. Hey, I'm willing to be sponsored. No.
There you go.
Now you're also into the UFO part.
Yeah, I'm into the alien part of it and that because I firmly believe that there's life on other planets. It's back in '94 was the first exoplanet ever found, and the exoplanet basically means a planet outside of our solar system, whether it's inhabited or not. That has nothing to do with it. They just found the planet. Since then, they've realized and found that almost every single star you see in the sky has planets around it. So if you look at all the stars out there and all the stars we can't see, they all basically have planets around them. They all are either younger or millions of years older than ours is. So there was time in the universe for life to exist everywhere. There was one thing, Enrique Fermi was sitting around the table having dinner with a bunch of other scientists, and he just stood up one day and said, "Where are they?" And they're like, "Who?" He's like, "The aliens. At the speed that we can travel right now, as many planets and then solar systems are out there, they should be here by now." And maybe they are. We don't know. I've met a lot of people that believe that they are. I met a lady at one of the UFO conferences that says that there was a reptile there.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was like, "Introduce me."
Yeah, no kidding. Wow, that would be interesting.
No, I firmly believe out of all the paranormal stuff, like ghosts, Bigfoot, aliens, I believe that aliens is the most likely to be out there. Just for the fact that the universe is so big and so old that they have to be there. And whether they come down and visit us or not, I don't think they would, around this time in our lifetime because of all the stuff that's going on. I think they lock the doors when they fly by.
Yeah, right.
But, I do believe that they've been here in the past. Whether they come all the time or not, I don't know. But I have seen at one of the conferences, one of our other investigators brought some night vision goggles that were military-grade night vision goggles. I put them on, and I look at the satellites and all that, so I know what the satellites are. I know the patterns that they go in. But I looked through these night vision goggles, and I swear I saw so much stuff flying around in space that you can't see with the naked eye. And it was just doing weird things, like saw things turning. Satellites don't turn. Satellites just go straight across. And if you go out on any night and stare long enough, you'll see a satellite go over, and then just wait, and you'll see the next one. You'll be able to start seeing what they are. But when I put those goggles on, I could see all kinds of things up there. And whether it's alien or not, I don't know. I've never actually seen a UFO, but I firmly believe, that they're out there. And they have visited us in the past. There's a lot of evidence showing that they have. There's an anomaly under the sea that if you look up and there goes my brain again. I can't remember the name of it, but there's not. Oh man, I brought it up to you now. I can't tell you what the name of it is. Driving me nuts. But anyhow,
It'll come to you.
it looks like a crashed thing, a crashed vessel under the sea that looks like the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars.
Wow.
Okay. The Baltic Sea anomaly. That's what it's called. So if you get a chance, look that up. You can see it's not a rock formation, and you can actually see where it hit the mountain coming in, and there's a path in the bottom of the ocean leading up to it. But it's called the Baltic Sea anomaly.
It's putting that into my phone to look at after.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
Mm-hmm. So that could be it could be a spaceship. We don't know, but it sure is not a natural phenomenon. And then just all kinds of stuff. All over the world, people are seeing UFOs every day. If you look at statistics of, type in on the computer, UFO sightings in 2010 or 2021, they'll come up and you can actually see how many are listed in there saying that they're seeing UFOs and aliens and all that. So I believe in it. I really do.
The past couple of years, we're hearing a lot more of sightings, and I don't know if it's because of COVID that people have a lot more time on their hands and they're just looking up more, or and maybe we're having the same amount of sightings, but it just seems to be that it's growing right now. But again, I don't know if it's because we're paying more attention now, or if there's more activity. I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard stories where the reason that people are seeing more is the fact that we're in a pandemic, and you can tell the energy of the earth is changing.
Oh, big time.
The vibrational energy of the earth is changing, and they can sense that. It was the same thing during wars and stuff like that, because there was a lot of UFO sightings during wars. And there were a lot of times where the UFOs either actually interacted with the wars, whether they helped or hurted. There's been accounts where UFO activity over our nuclear bases, where they actually shut the bases off or started the countdown. So there's a lot of different activity. I think that maybe, now this is just me saying this, that the vibrations of the earth are changing because everybody's sick, everybody's pissed off, basically. Energy levels are so high that maybe they're picking that up and they're coming to check us out. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. But I do believe, like you.
Yeah, plus the fact that everybody is stuck at home and with nothing to do, so they look up in the sky, or even in their homes get paranormal activity ramping up because of it. The activity's always been there, but the ghosts are mad because you're home all day and they
can't walk around
themselves.
Yeah, they can't walk around naked. Yeah, I believe, like you, that during I kind of, how can I word this? So, how when we're researching a certain species of animal and we tag them and then we just kind of monitor them, I really believe that happens on Earth as well, with other beings watching us, I mean, out of all of the planets that are out there, like you said, when you look at a star, I mean, how can you not think that there's life out there? And life doesn't necessarily mean looking like you and I. It doesn't even have to have red blood like us. It doesn't have to breathe oxygen like us. But it would be a form of life that we might not even be aware of exist. But yeah, something is watching us. Yeah.
And there's so many different things that could happen why they don't come here. If they don't, the ones that don't come here. I mean, they could have been a water planet, where they are all fish, so they don't get off their planet. They could be so old that we're boring to them.
Yeah.
They're so advanced. I mean, we don't go to a beehive and try to talk to the bees and communicate with them and see if they can communicate back to us.
Yep.
Or they could be a planet where they blew themselves up. They like nuclear war. One of the big things is when we first started testing nuclear bombs, UFO activity skyrocketed. There was so much more activity, and I think it's to the point where it's almost like Star Trek, First Contact,
Yep.
where we don't make contact with the people on that planet until they hit warp drive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in our case, we figured out how to make the nuclear bomb, which could blow our planet up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, right now, we have enough hydrogen bombs to blow the whole planet up. And I think that the aliens actually see that and either try to warn us and stop us, or, like you said, they're watching us to see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and who knows? You know, our lifespan is basically 100 years. Their lifespan could be 1,000 years. We don't know. So, if people say, "Well, why would they just sit and watch us and not do anything?" Well, maybe they are. We're just not noticing because our lifespan is a lot shorter. You know, I mean, we look at bugs. We study bugs in the lab that have a lifespan of 2 or 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
To the bug, that's their whole lifetime. To us, it's 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to those people who say, why, if they're watching us, why don't they help us? Well, it's probably the same reason why when we're researching animals and we tag them and we're watching them, if they're getting in a fight or something, we're not going to stop it. We want to see, you know, their real life. How do they interact with each other and what's going to happen? So it might be crazy thinking, but I really believe that.
Yeah. And there have been stories where people have been healed by UFO abductions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so maybe they are. We don't know. You know, we talk about our guardian angels and all that protecting us, and maybe the UFOs or the aliens protect us in the same way. We don't know.
Maybe the guardian angels are the aliens.
That's true.
You never know.
Yeah. That's a rabbit hole we could go down for hours.
Right? Like Cisco Murdoch says, it's the paranormal onion, because when you peel one layer, there's more layers underneath, and it just never ends.
I mean, think about this. Do aliens, see, I'm back in aliens. Do angels kill? Think about that. Okay, it's an answer it's a question that really doesn't have an answer, because in the Bible they talk about the angels battling the fallen angels or battling the dark side. So if they're battling, are they killing or are they just pushing back? You know, so I don't know. That's a story I'm trying to talk to my mom about, because she's very religious and she's big into angels. And I asked her that one day, and she's like, "I don't know. We'll talk about that later." And she hasn't done it yet, so I don't know.
You kind of stopped me in my tracks with that question. I've never heard anyone ask that question before, but yeah, I'm going to have to start asking that to people.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And if you look at the structure if you look at angels, the hierarchies and all that, it's almost like an alien race.
Mm-hmm.
Because different angels do different things, and there's different hierarchies of angels.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. You know, hopefully I didn't piss a bunch of people religious people are going, "It's God, it's not that," you know, but no, it's thought, you know, it's things to think about. And
definitely.
I know I keep saying it, but we won't know till we're there.
Yeah.
And when we are there, we can't communicate with us back here.
Yeah. And that's why we're trying to communicate with the other side, so we can get some of these answers before we have to cross.
That's right.
Also to get people's stories, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had also recently heard on another podcast, and I can't even remember where I heard this. It was a little while back, talking about angels and how we always portray them with wings. And someone had said, well, in the written word in the Bible, it doesn't actually say that angels have wings. It just says they fly. So how do we know they're not flying in crafts? And I'm just like, oh my, this is like going down the rabbit hole again. I thought, oh my God, this is brilliant. And maybe they just started drawing them with wings because back then they didn't really know how to describe things as well as we can now. And they just see them as, they wanted to portray them as flying, and maybe that's how they're doing it. And I thought, wow, that's brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you're back, you know, in the, BC, 2000 BC or whatever you want to say. And you see an entity and they float up into the sky. Well, you know, the birds have wings, so they have to have wings. You know, I didn't see them flapping.
Yeah.
And I also think that they may do that also as an angelic in the pictures, so that it shows that they're angelic. They have, with the wings and the halo and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about it, the wings aren't big enough to pick them up. All the pictures, if they did weigh anything, which we don't know if angels weigh anything or not, but for the size of the body, the wings are too small.
But when you look at the bee, technically the bee shouldn't be able to fly too. So
yeah, that's true.
There's so many unanswered questions, or questions that lead to other.
That's right.
It's funny. Or maybe the wings and the halo, that is technology that enables them to fly. There's going way out there now. Way out thinking.
The jetpack and the helmet.
So interesting. But it's interesting to see too when you look at cave drawings and things like that, how some drawings actually look like spacecraft. It's like that's amazing.
Aliens, the Nazca lines. There's a giant alien. Like you said, a lot of cave drawings. They all have and they always say, well, they were primitive. They didn't know how to draw. Well, they can draw the buffalo. They can draw all this other stuff. And then they draw a human figure with a giant head with giant eyes. They drew what they saw. Yeah.
Was that a helmet? Or like, I don't know.
We don't know, but it's just so bizarre that all over the world you see the same drawings. They may be a little different, but they're all still basically the same thing. And they still portray as what we call the Greys. Small beings, the small hands, long fingers, big head, big eyes, tiny mouth, tiny nose. Even the 8 to 12,000 year old drawings are the same.
The thing about the paranormal that fascinates me the most, and I've said countless times, is it doesn't matter the culture, the religion, whatever. Everybody around the world for centuries all have these stories. They might be known as a different name, but they're pretty much talking about the same thing. Like if you look at cryptids and you talk about Bigfoot in North America, it's Bigfoot or Sasquatch or skunk ape or whatever. Nepal, it could be the Yeti. Australia is the Yowie. They're pretty much the same thing. They might have different hair color because of the climate that they're in, but it's like that with humans as well. So that just fascinates me. I mean, everybody can't be wrong.
No.
There's something.
And there's so many stories. There's so many stories of people that see them, are they all lying? They can't be.
Yeah.
And it goes back, there was a lamp found, an oil lamp in what is now Japan from 8,000 years ago that had depiction of Bigfoot on it.
Oh, I hadn't heard that. Wow.
Yeah. So it's going back thousands of years of the same stories of these same, beast or same humanoid figure that people were seeing back then. And they weren't just giants. They had full hair bodies, standing upright, walking bipedal, not and like I said with the cave drawings, they knew what they looked like and they could draw what they saw. Yeah. It's not, so many people say that the cavemen were so primitive that their drawings were so childlike, like a 2-year-old drawing. Like, no, they were smarter than what you think.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. And how do we know that 12,000 years ago, before the flood, there wasn't more advanced people than us? I forget his name now. My mind is really mush tonight. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But there's 12,000 years ago, they believed there was a large flood that wiped everything out. And it corresponds with the same time that Atlantis disappeared. So how do we know that there was such advanced civilization, way more advanced than us, that were there? The floods wiped it out because there was a meteor that hit the Earth that melted all the ice caps. And this is proven because of all the different cataracts and stuff that are around the world. And you can actually look at maps and actually see where water flew were floated down from up there in Canada to the United States, all that. And they believe that Atlantis sunk the same time as the floods, which were 12,000 years ago. And how do we know that they weren't so advanced that they had spaceships or they had flight? Because even in the Egyptian pyramid or something like that, they found a hieroglyph with what looks like a boat, looks like a helicopter, looks like a spaceship. And they say that that is caused by people rewriting over what was already there. But why would it come out to look like a helicopter and a boat and a spaceship as we know it? I mean, plain as day, you can see, like, the helicopter looks like an Apache helicopter.
Oh, wow.
With the same shape of the body, the rotors on top, and the tail sticking up. And that was from, I believe, 5,000 years ago in the Egyptian, in one of the Egyptian locations.
And we know that helicopters they weren't around back then,
No.
at least that we know of. Yeah.
No.
Wow.
And if you ever watch Ancient Aliens, you always see the main character on there, Giorgio, the guy with the hair. If you ever look, he's on his pin, it looks like a little airplane. And what that is they were doing a dig somewhere in Egypt, and they actually found this trinket, you want to say. And everybody said, no, that's a bird. But it had the swept wings, the triangular shaped swept wings on the front and the back. And then it had the center section that looked like a plane. And that was found in Egypt 5,000 years ago or whatever. So how do we know that they didn't have flying machines or jets or in that? We don't know.
Or really funky looking birds.
Yeah. And enough time has passed where if it was, it's been decayed away. So,
You're going to have to pay attention to that pin.
Yeah, next time you see the show, look on his lapel. He always wears it. And they did a show about it. I don't know which episode it was, but they talked about that. And they also found a wooden, they called it a toy, and they said it was a bird. But the problem is, it did look like a bird. It had the face of a bird, but the wings were on top, okay, and they were straight across. And then in the back, instead of there's no birds that have the tails that go vertical. They're always horizontal, okay? And in this, it had a tail, which was horizontal, not vertical. And they actually did a study where they made a model, put it in a wind tunnel, and they said that it could fly. So, and that was a toy, they call it a toy that they found in Egypt from around 5,000 years ago, I'll say.
Makes you really want to...
The evidence is there that they had more sophisticated equipment than we know about.
Makes you want to just time travel and find out all these answers.
Yeah. How do we know that the aliens are not the time travelers from the future coming back to watch us?
Yeah, that's been mentioned several times by a lot of people. Yeah. I remember...
I mean, what better vacation if you're, 1,000 or 1,000,000 years in the future than, well, let's go back to 2020 and see the world.
Yeah, and the kids are like, I don't want to go to 2020 again. When I was a teenager, I remember I used to subscribe to this magazine called, so there was like Science 80, Science 81, so like 1982, 83, they changed it every year. And I remember reading an article saying that they found, so that they would have a clip, just little mini stories in the beginning of the magazine about interesting things that were happening around the world and discoveries. And there was this one discovery, they found the remains of a man and a woman, they're human, in a cave, and it looked like they had been living there. But the problem was, when they did the carbon dating, it was right around the same time as dinosaurs. And as they're like, humans and dinosaurs didn't live together, so they were speculating that this was, they were time travelers. And they said more to come in future issues. I've never seen any story. They never continued the story. I've been Googling it for years to try and find out if there was more. It almost makes me feel like there was, but they hushed it up, or I don't know.
It's possible.
It was so fascinating, and I thought, I can't wait till the next issue. And I checked the next issue. Okay, well, maybe it'll be in the next issue. And I did that for years. And then finally they just stopped publishing the magazine, and I'm like, son of a biscuit, I never found out. And that's the one article, the one story out of all the entire magazine life that I was fascinated by, and it's the only one that I actually remember reading, and I've never found out any more information, and it really bothers me.
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't that suck? You finally get to go on your time traveling vacation. Let's go look at the dinosaurs. And you get stepped on, or
Yeah.
you get stuck in a cave, and then
Yeah.
a million years later we find the skeleton, and you're like, where did they come from?
Yeah.
And then the magazine writes about it and doesn't finish the article.
Yeah, I know. It was, and I actually did think, well, maybe there was a lot more to it, but they had to put it under the carpet type thing so people wouldn't find out more information about it. But there's people like me who remember. So if anybody's out there ever know, if you look, I'm getting tongue-tied tonight too. If anybody's out there who actually knows about the story that I was talking about, if you've read that, please let me know. And most importantly, if you know of any further writings about it, discoveries, talks about it, it's something that's just ingrained in my brain, and I want to know. So, yeah.
I mean, it's like the hammer that they found embedded in stone. There was actually a big hammer, and they say that it was, I mean, you can see pictures of it online, but they say that they found this somewhere, and the stone has actually molded itself around the handle and the hammer. They say they found a cell phone, which I don't know, but it sure looks like a cell phone to me. But you know, things like that, and screw mechanisms and bolts and stuff.
Yeah.
And there was one where, you know how in Europe the electrical plugs are different than over here. They're actually a circle with three plugs. They found something like that in stone. You know, so who knows? You know,
Is it somebody's hoax, or did
yeah. Did the time traveler drop his cell phone back then?
Yeah.
Of course, why would they have cell phones? You know,
Happened to have
If
been
they're so
on
advanced
them.
they can time travel.
Well, yeah, true. Maybe the device that they're holding is what enables them to time travel. Who knows?
That's true.
And it's a cell phone.
I mean, our phones do all kinds of things. Why not?
I know. Like what I jokingly say, well, not jokingly say, but if you look at a Radio Shack catalog from many years ago, pretty much everything they sold in the catalog is in our hands, in one device, you know.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So who knows?
You ever see that Charlie Chaplin movie where the woman is walking past a tiger? It's a circus thing. She's walking past, and they all say that she's talking on her cell phone.
Oh, I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, well, okay, if she had a cell phone back then, if she was a time traveler and she went back to the 20s or 30s, she wouldn't have reception anyway, so why would she have it up to her ear? You know?
Well, have you ever watched Doctor Who?
No.
You know what Doctor Who is, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wherever they travel in time and space, their cell phones, he did something and it's hooked up to the TARDIS, his spacecraft, and they can use their cell phones anywhere, anytime, any place, you know, so maybe it's something like that. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where they got it from.
Maybe.
That could be where the TV show got their idea from.
Yeah. Oh my God. We're going down the rabbit hole some more. Blast you, Joe.
I know, I'm screwing up your whole show.
No, you're not screwing it up at all. It's fascinating. So if you were able to see, actually have an experience with an alien, would you jump on board and say, hey, yeah, I'd like to go and fly away with you? Probably depending on the type of alien it is.
Yeah, that's true. No, yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I mean, why not?
Yeah, that would be amazing.
It'd be the chance of a lifetime.
No kidding.
Yeah. And then I come back, you may get some medical procedures that you weren't expecting, but you know, still be an adventure.
Yeah, right? I'm still waiting for my Android body right now because mine's falling apart. So
Yeah,
maybe they can fix that.
that's true. Yeah. Take me up tonight and fix everything.
Have you ever had any encounters with cryptids or anything, or do you have a fascination? Have a favorite one?
I've never had any type of, things happen with cryptids. I've had things happen with ghosts, of course, and other different things that happen. But we've gone out on some Bigfoot adventures. I've gone in the woods and did a few Bigfoot things, but never really got anything. I'm big into Bigfoot, of course, but never really had anything happen. We've had sounds and that, but there again, you don't really know what that is. You're out in the woods and you're tree banging and stuff. Who's to say that if you're tree banging, the Bigfoot is over there going, oh, the other Bigfoot's warning me to get away.
Yeah.
And heard strange noises in the woods, but then again, I'm not familiar with coyote sounds. I'm not familiar with different animal sounds well enough that I can say, no, that's not what that was. That was actually a Bigfoot. So I'm not so much with cryptids. Now, with ghosts, and I've had a lot of things happening on different investigations, but nothing with cryptids.
I do believe in Bigfoot, but I'm also a skeptic. Things like if you're out in the woods and you're doing tree knocks and you hear one, how do we know it's not another human down there thinking they're communicating with a Bigfoot, but it's really two humans,
Yeah.
There's just not enough proof. But people who research this are like, no, you can tell. It's like, well, I've never done it, so I don't know, but that's just where my mind goes. I have to not necessarily debunk things, but I have to try and think on different levels of what things could possibly be. So,
yeah. I mean, when we were out there, we heard screams, we heard noises and that. But you got to remember too, we're out in the woods at night. I don't know all the sounds that the animals make. I mean, if you've ever heard a rabbit scream, you'll think that the devil is coming out of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just I can't be certain that that's what we heard because I don't know. And like I said, people that are going out doing Bigfoot adventures, it's the same thing. We have no clue about them. We know, like Dr. Meldrum and people like that know a lot about the creatures, and like Ken Gerhard, they know a lot about the creatures because that's what they think, their research has told them. Not being negative or anything like that. I'm just saying the same thing is we don't know, until we can positively say, yes, this is a Bigfoot standing right next to me. This is what he does. We don't know. I mean, people are out there knocking on trees. You hear wood knocks in the woods and by Bigfoot. That could be a warning sign saying, get away from me, get away from me. And here we are knocking back going, come here,
Yeah. I'm over here.
Yeah. And I feel, now I do believe that Bigfoot exists. What form that they live in, I don't know, because if they are coming down from spaceships, or if they are interdimensional, why do they leave evidence? Why did they leave footprints? Why did they leave hairs? If they're interdimensional, they could walk through a tree instead of knocking it over, 20 feet up or 7 feet up. Why would they leave footprints? So I think, in my mind, that Bigfoot exists, but it is a flesh and blood creature, and the population is just so small that we can't find them yet. Up to, I think it was 84, we didn't even know that there was a certain gorilla that lived. And then they found this gorilla, and they've been around for hundreds of years.
Yep.
They just never seen them. And I think it's the same thing with Bigfoot. I believe that if you're out in the woods and there's Bigfoot around, they know you're there a long time before you know they're there.
Yeah.
Because it's the same thing with dogs. Their senses are so much better than ours. I feel that if Bigfoot is real, they're like that. I feel that they sense us around them and smell us and all that before we even know they're around. And they live in the woods. They know how to hide. They know how to camouflage. I've heard people, I've interviewed a lot of people about Bigfoot, and I've heard everything from they live in tunnels or caves to they call them the skunk apes because they smell so bad.
Mhm.
That's because they're always underground, or they're rolling around with trying to get that scent on them so that it either scares off other predators, even though they're 7 feet tall.
Plus.
Yeah. They feel that smell is their way of repelling humans or whatever.
Mhm.
And like I said, I just feel that if they do exist, they're a flesh and blood creature. The population, like Ken Gerhard and me were talking, and he said that he believes that worldwide there's 1,000 of them right now.
Oh, wow.
Because, and even I believe that if they are a flesh and blood creature, they may be so old, their metabolic rates might be so slow where they might live 500 years compared to us. So they know the knowledge, they have the experience of the woods, they live long enough to where they don't breed as much, because you very rarely do you see children. I mean, there have been pictures of mothers and child and that, but how do we know that they grow so slow that those children are children for 15 or 20 years and then they become adults? I don't know.
Yeah. That's interesting. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. And I've talked to people, like I interviewed one girl that carried on her dad's legacy of hunting with Bigfoot. She told me that she visits with a Bigfoot every day. And she says that he lives in a cave, and she'll go on top of that cave and he'll know that she's there, and he pounds on the roof, and then he comes out and talks to her basically. And I'm like, I interview a lot of people, I talk to a lot of people. I will never say, no, you're wrong, because I don't know. How do I know that she is not communicating, sitting there talking to what she called the big man? And if I go up in there and say, no, you didn't do that, and then all of a sudden she says, oh, come with me, and she shows me this thing, I'll be like, oh crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
But on the other hand, I think if that's the case, and I've talked to a lot of people that say that they communicate with Bigfoot, if that was the case, they'd be millionaires, they'd be billionaires, they'd be the biggest thing in the news, because they have the opportunity to prove to the world that Bigfoot exists.
Yeah.
And they're not. They're telling stories about it, but show proof. Show us that you are actually doing that. But like I said, I cannot say, no, I don't believe you. I just say, okay, someday I may know. But
has she described when you said that he comes out of the cave and talks to her, did she ever describe the language? Was it like, because some people say it sounds like samurais, the samurai.
Yeah.
Was it anything like that, do you know?
She says that it was more of a grunting, communication, because we're trying to communicate, like, okay, let's say I'm her looking at the Bigfoot. I can't just say, so what's your name? You have to do sign language, and you have to try, even with sign language, you try to figure out what he thinks you're saying. So when I asked her that, she says, no, we just communicate with hand signs and grunts. She kind of picks up on what a grunt means or what a tone means or that. So, I don't know. Like I said, she could just be blowing smoke up my butt. I don't know. But I can't say to her, in my heart, I can't say, you're lying to me. No, that's bull crap. Because it could be,
Yeah. I get a lot of people asking me if I believe my guests, and I say I don't need to believe my guests. They've experienced something and they're sharing it with me and the listeners. So I don't even go there. Like you said, I can say you're totally out to lunch, but they legit did have that experience. But who are we to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had people talk to me and say that they talk to angels every day, and that they're the one that communicates with the spirit. When someone passes, they come to him to cross over. And who am I to say, no, you're wrong, you don't do that, you know? I mean, when I die, all of a sudden I see him, I'm going to be like, you're right.
You're right, yeah. My bad. Exactly.
And I think that's why people come to people like me and you and tell their stories, because they know that we're open-minded enough and we're compassionate enough that we will listen.
Yes, exactly.
You know, there's so many times at conventions, because me and Jen, we do, let's see, before COVID, we were doing 2 to 3 conventions a month. And
Wow.
yeah, we travel a lot in the first few years. We kind of scaled back a little bit because we're doing other projects, but I can't tell you how many times people come up to us at conventions and say, I've never told anybody this before, but, and they do that because you at the conventions, you're open to that. And that's why we're there. We're there to talk to people. We're there to hear their stories. And it's an open forum for them, and they know that they're not going to be ridiculed.
It's a safe place. Yeah.
Yeah. And I, even, you know, as we go out, I always wear my shirts with the 222 Paranormal Podcast on, and people will come up and go, who's that? And I said, well, we do a paranormal talk show, because I always say talk show because a lot of people don't know what podcasts are.
I know.
You know, and I said, well, I do a paranormal talk show, and they're like, paranormal, I don't believe in that stuff. But you know what happened one time?
Yeah, there was this one time. Oh, I know. People like us hear that all the time. Like, yeah, I don't. It's a load of rubbish. Yeah, it's funny. I think it's because people are afraid to open up and they don't want to seem like they're crazy.
Exactly.
Although the paranormal world is opening up and a lot more people are a lot more open-minded now. It's easier to talk about it, but there's still a little bit of that stigma.
Yeah. Even with, I get a lot of grief from religious people. I had a lady one time, we were doing an event in Whitmore Lake, Michigan, and she came up to me and she says, I don't believe in that, I'm a Christian. I'm like, okay, all right. I'm like, okay, so what do you mean by that? Well, I believe in Jesus. I'm like, okay, so do you believe in Jesus, God, and the Holy Spirit? And she's like, well, yeah, but I don't believe in that paranormal stuff. I'm like, don't you realize every religion is based in the belief in the paranormal? And the paranormal is just not ghosts or demons. It's everything.
Yeah.
It's other than normal.
Yes. Yeah. And I find a lot of people who are very religious don't like to hear that. And it's like, well, sorry. I mean, you call them miracles, but it's paranormal. If you really step back, if you take the religion out of it and just step back, I was raised French Roman Catholic, but I always had these questions growing up. It's like, well, why is this happen? That's really weird. Like, and the Padres would just say it's miracles. And then as I got older, I started realizing, okay, maybe there is something with religion and paranormal. You can't have these miracles without, in my opinion, anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things, your listener, if they want to check out my show, we did a show, 2 of them. The second one was a couple weeks ago, probably 4 or 5 weeks ago, with my mom. And then we also did one with her probably a year, maybe a year and a half ago. I don't remember the episode numbers, but anyways, she is very, very religious. And she doesn't believe in the paranormal aspect of it. Okay. But she has seen so many things, and she has a photo album of all these pictures of apparitions and miracles. Things like the blood and the in the Catholic Church they call it the host, but that she actually has pictures of that where it turned into flesh, and it was tested, and they found out that it was human flesh because it's the blood and body of Christ. She actually saw it change from the white wafer to the blood and the flesh of Jesus. And she got a picture of it. Okay. And then she also took a picture of a crucifix, just a standard crucifix, at one of these locations that she goes to. Mm-hmm. Just like when we go, son. She took a picture of this, and the picture that turned out was a glass crucifix of Jesus with every wound that he had. And she has that picture. You look at it, and you're like, well, what is this? It's a picture of Jesus with all the blood all over him. And she's like, no, that was actually just a wooden crucifix without Jesus on it. And the picture turned out so. It's the same thing. We take these pictures and we see apparitions. Mm-hmm. She has pictures of at a healing mass. She took a picture of the priest, and in the picture, you can see Mary as an apparition.
That's amazing.
So I'm like, Mom, this is the same thing, but it's in the religious aspect instead of the ghosty aspect. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's one of the things I cherish of hers that she has on. It's underneath the TV right now at her house. Mm-hmm. It's her little book of photos, and they're actual photos. They're not digital photos. They're actually, she had a little 110 camera that she used.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And she got all these pictures of apparitions, of, visions, miracles in this book. And I'm like, Mom, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. We take pictures when we're ghost hunting, and we see, we may see an apparition in a picture of that. So religion and quote the paranormal is the same thing. It's just different aspects of it.
My mother was extremely religious. She had her prayer beads. She prayed every day, very, very religious. But she also acknowledged the paranormal, and she would say, she was very open-minded, and she would say, not everything is evil in the paranormal. And I'm like, thank you. Like, and like I said, she was extremely religious. Mm-hmm. So,
there's so many times where people say, whenever you hear paranormal, it's demons. Mm-hmm. It's like, no. It's not. The orb is not a demon, okay? It's just a piece of dust. No.
Well, some orbs are real, but
when you say you study the paranormal, they think you're demonologist. Like, no.
Actually, that's an aspect of the paranormal I do not want to investigate. When it comes to demons, I know other people who handle the extreme cases, and they are my cavalry. If we're lucky enough that our team hasn't really encountered anything evil like that, but if we ever do, we have archbishops that we know, we have sisters, we have people, everyday, well, not everyday people, but people that just deal with those extreme cases that I don't want to have anything to do with. And I really don't know, I have so much more respect for these people, because I have to say, it terrifies me. I don't want to do it.
Yeah. Luckily, I haven't run into that yet. Because, like I said, I'm not really like a paranormal investigator. I'm more of a ghost hunter. Yeah. I don't put myself in the... I don't do investigations at people's homes and that, unless it's... I did one over the winter last year. It was a friend's mom. She was worried because her cats wouldn't come in the house, and she's, I think she was a Wiccan or something like that. So she knows all this, and her cats would go up to the door and not any farther, and she knew that something was in that house. And we did investigate, but I didn't do it by myself. I did it with the team that invited me there. So luckily, I haven't ran into anything like that, where anything that evil where we'd have to call in a priest or something that's happened.
Yep. I've had a couple of past guests message me, and they were having some issues at their house that required a padre. So I contacted an archbishop friend of mine, and they were able to help the people. But it's like, I don't do this, but I do know people, so I will direct you to them if it's okay, But so much respect for people like that.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I've never seen it in person, never seen an exorcism in person, but I've heard so many stories. And I mean, I've seen the TV, but but I've heard so many stories. And my mom even said a few times about exorcisms. I'm like, Ma, you're talking about exorcisms and the things that go on, But yeah, luckily I haven't ran into that, and hopefully I don't.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Mm-hmm.
Me too. Wow, it's been over an hour and a half.
Oh wow!
Yeah, this is awesome. So I think we'll call it here.
All right.
But if you'd like to tell the listeners where they can find you.
Yeah, best place is to go to our website, 222paranormal.com. That's where you can find out where we're at. Our show is everywhere. Wherever you listen to your podcast from, just type in 222 Paranormal Podcast and it will pop up. If you do, please subscribe. That helps us out a lot. Knocks the numbers up. Other than that, yeah, our Facebook page, 222 Paranormal Podcast on Facebook. I'd like to plug my new page. My Joe Shortridge page is not really active yet, but I started a new Facebook page called The Year of Prophet. I'm actually a life coach and a Ramsey certified financial coach now, and I've started the Year of Prophet, so if anyone wants to check that out, please do. Other than that, best way is 222paranormal.com.
Okay. And as usual, I will be adding into the show notes the links, so it's easier for people to find.
All right, cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciated this. We touched on a lot of stuff today.
Sorry, I
it was
just went
fun.
on all these different rabbit holes. But
It's okay. It happens. The paranormal, I used to think it was just ghosts, and then I realized, no, it's not just ghosts. It could be aliens, cryptids, Mandela effect, anything. So there's a lot of doors that you can open when it comes to the paranormal, that's for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. I'm glad we got to do it, and
Me too.
hopefully we'll do it again.
Definitely, yes. If you're willing, I am as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, we've made it to the end of another episode. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, take care of each other. And if you'd like to be on the show or have questions and comments, just drop me an email, paranormalheart13@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Paranormal Heart would like to extend a special thank you to PurplePlanet.com for supplying the music for the show. The views and opinions expressed on Paranormal Heart are those of the host and participants.